All right, so I just got done prepping the last little part of that bed for our fall garden. And if you just watch that time lapse, first of all, there goes my beautiful wife carrying kale. She's going inside, or she probably would jump on this soapbox with me here in a minute. But I just got finished up weeding this bed out and getting it prepped for our winter garden. And if you did watch that time lapse, you may be thinking, why in the heck are you taking all that time to weed the bed? Why don't you just use Roundup? Why don't you use some other kind of herbicide to help control things? It'll be a whole lot easier. And you know what? You're right. It would be easier. But let me tell you a little story. Well, I guess a couple little stories. When I was in college, and even to this day, if I'm at home, especially during this pandemic time, I've had some extra time at home since they've had the schools closed down. But I would always schedule my classes so I could be back in my dorm room so I could watch The Price is Right. I love The Price is Right. Don't get to watch it too much anymore. But even since this pandemic time, we've been closed down for a little bit, had some extra time at home, I'll sit down and watch like Gunsmoke or things like that, Bonanza on regular local TV. And no matter if I was watching The Price is Right back in college, or if I'm watching Gunsmoke or their news or something else right now, you always see two main commercials during daytime TV, especially around, you know, that 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. time slot. You always see two commercials. Number one, it's always been diabetes medication commercials, or diabetes is the way they always pronounce it. Second commercial, now that you're starting to see more of, is all these lawyer firms and all these advertisements for legal help if you've gotten cancer as a result to Roundup. All right, so no matter if it's diabetes or cancer because of Roundup, both of these issues are caused by our broken food system. Okay, so the reason why we don't use any kind of herbicides or pesticides on our garden is because we're starting to see the results of poor food quality and poor food production practices. We're starting to see the results of that now. So yes, it's a little bit harder. It takes a little more time, but food quality is so much better and healthier. And I don't have to worry about getting sick. All right, for example, I just saw this on the ground. My wife, like I said, just picked kale. She dropped a nice piece of kale on the ground. And because of the way we do things, I can pick that just right off the ground and eat it and not have to worry about washing it, getting sick from Roundup or herbicides or other pesticides that we put on our food. Okay, we can do that with everything that we have. So it's more nutrient dense. Our soil is a lot healthier. And, sorry, had to finish chewing. A lot of studies are showing now, and this whole subject could just be a whole nother video within itself. But because of the overuse of Roundup and other herbicides and pesticides, they're seeing weeds now that are becoming more and more herbicide resistant. So we're basically developing super weeds that is causing us to increase the potency and the toxicity of our Roundups or our herbicides that we're putting on plants and soil, which in turn is depleting it even more. And now with herbicides, we're creating bugs that are pesticide resistant. We're creating super bugs that are having us to create a more toxic and more potent pesticide, which again depletes the soil even more. It's just causing a bigger and bigger mess. So yes, this is a little bit harder work. It takes a little more time, but I want you to think about it this way as well. This is just my opinion. Especially when I think about farming, gardening, you know, our faith is something that's really important to our family. And no matter if I view this as me as a husband to my wife, or me as a father to my girls, everything that we do, we're taking on the role as a gardener. All right, it's my job and part of my responsibility to help weed, massage, till, strengthen, add health to the relationship that I have with my wife. All right, same thing with my 2 girls as a dad. It would be a whole lot easier if I sent both of my girls off to boarding school, which some days, I know parents, you probably feel like you want to do that. I'm there with you. It'd be a whole lot easier to send them off, let somebody else raise them, and make them how you want them to be made. All right, but when those kids did come back to you, what would the health of your relationship look like with them? Okay, what would that relationship produce? Same thing with the marriage. I know Emily wishes probably she could send me off some days. All right, but if we didn't take the time as a husband and wife, or as a father to your children, if you don't take the time to get your hands dirty, pull out weeds, expose things, add compost, add health into those relationships, if you don't take the time to do that, the fruit that it produces on the back end is never going to be as good. So that's why, as I was sitting here doing all this work, raking, pulling weeds, and sometimes I had to put the hoe down and actually get my hands dirty to get some little things out. Okay, because if you noticed, along this fence line here, I've got sweet potatoes planted, and I showed you a couple sweet potatoes there during the time lapse. But I started to go a little too deep in areas, and I started to pull up some of the sweet potatoes that were close. So I had to back off and actually get down and pull things by hand, which I still have to go back and do. So sometimes it's the easy way is not the fun way, but the hard way lots of times produces the most fruit. Okay, our world is definitely getting in the habit of taking the easy way out of a lot of things, and we're starting to see the results, the negative results of that now, which again, I'm taking a little soapbox time to maybe express my thoughts and feelings on some of this stuff. It could be a whole heck of a lot longer, and maybe we will dive into it longer. But again, the reason why we do organic is because it builds the relationship and the meaning between what we do as farmers and what we're called to care for and how we're called to care for it. But it builds that relationship between us and our food. And that's something that our culture has lost today, which we see it in those commercials, whether it be type 2 diabetes being on the rise, obesity being on the rise, and even the effects of Roundup and our industrial farming practices. So yeah, that's my soapbox. Build relationship with your food, take time with your food, and ultimately not only you but your family will benefit from it for years and years to come. So, till next time, we'll see you later.